remembrance of
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Take, eat, this is my body which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This do as often as you drink in remembrance of me. Take, eat, this is my body which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This do as often as you drink in remembrance of me. Take, eat, this is my body which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This do as often as you drink in remembrance of me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3.
But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Jesus said to him, it is written again, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. Then Jesus said to him, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Jesus said to him, it is written again, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. Then Jesus said to him, away with you, Satan, for it is written, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve. For it is written, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve.
We're live.
Hello.
Hello, all. Thank you for your patience if you are here watching currently. It's March 13th, 2025. This is the Talk with Shawn hour. Welcome.
Talk at Shawn,
Talk.
whatever it might be. Hey, can I bring something up I just saw?
Yeah, let me announce what this is really fast.
Oh, okay.
If you are new here, which you probably aren't, this is 1 hour long. You can call in at 220-222-4686 or HOTM. You can text that number throughout the week. You can call and leave a voicemail that we'll address at the call-in. You can join our community and drop questions in there. There's great people in there talking with one another. thegreatnewsnetwork.com/community. And you can also chat us in the live chat here on YouTube and ask us questions. Okay.
I don't like the phrase chat us.
Chat
you can
us.
chat us.
He associates it with dirty things, which it's not that anymore.
Is that how people say
No.
it? Chat us?
Chat at us? I don't really know.
I don't know. Chat us sounds like something really vile.
Okay.
I got an infection in my chat us.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, you Chattis lovers out
Lordy.
there. Listen,
Chattis.
the Wasatch Front News, not a big thing, but it's an affiliate of ABC. Channel4.com has an article on BYU study examines toxic perfectionism in the LDS Church. And, I think that any form of perfectionism is toxic. That's like a redundancy. I mean, perfectionism is a toxic state of life. And if you want to tune in on our teaching this Sunday, we're going through the Psalm and we're going to talk about saints. The Psalm. And we're going to talk about saints and how that is a form of perfectionism that has been allowed in the history of churches, which, as C.S. Lewis says, is a big joke.
That's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
It is the antithesis of everything to try to look like you're perfect.
Yeah.
Even if you are perfect, to look like you're perfect is the opposite of how we're supposed to be?
Where's the humility? Where's the
Yeah.
I continually make mistakes?
Yeah, it's really weird.
I had a friend who helped me come to really know God back in the day, and he became so enthralled with how he appeared. He used to cut his bangs really high, like they did back, like in
Like yeah,
back
like a
like a monk or
Catholic. Yeah.
something. And he walked around almost with his hands like praying in front of him. I'm like, Phil, you got to change this up,
Oh my
man.
gosh, that's
Yeah.
really funny.
Who do we got out there?
Phoenix reminded us that the phrase is to DM us, which that isn't.
DM us.
DM is like a direct message.
Oh.
Message us directly in the chat here.
Oh, I see. DM
So,
us. Hey, by
DM.
the way, is that Claire?
Yeah.
Claire, I have a document. I want to see if you'd be interested in editing for me. So let's talk. It's going to rock your
Please
world.
edit.
You have to have real intestinal fortitude and to do it. But we can talk.
She says 100%.
Awesome.
Awesome. A couple things from the community. We have some a list of questions on Mark.
Oh,
And from Kimberly. And I kind of wanted to address this because she also asked about transcripts.
oh,
And I think this is maybe part of the problem with the Great News Network database at this moment is I've said the transcripts are there, but given the way that I have to work on 2,000 posts at a time, it was hard to get the actual transcripts up there. I only got like summaries of them. So that is my last I've done so many passes at the website, but that will be the last thing, is putting the actual scripts into every single post so that they're accessible. And I think that might help a lot of the Bible questions that we have, so they can just maybe even like search the script and get answers.
that sounds great.
So we might forego going through the Mark questions one by one right now, unless you want to.
No, I think Grady's going to call in any minute now. So,
And maybe he can address some of them.
yeah, that
Okay.
would be good.
Okay, but another thing, so I just wanted to let everybody know that to look forward to that on the website /app pretty soon.
Okay.
And we have a couple more questions, but do you have something here?
Just, I want to do a little shout out. You know, I used to do shout outs on the live show.
No.
Yeah, a little shout out to Lindsay.
That's funny. He's in the.
Oh,
chatting.
hey!
Chat
I don't
us.
see the chat nor the DMs. Delaney has domain over that,
Hi,
but I just
Lindsay.
wanted to give a shout out. He has the library card. Is that what we call it?
Yes.
And he has gotten some books that he's appreciated, and he said the Incomprehensible Love is really great. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
There are, I don't even know how many, probably like 25 books, which are 90% new at cult.love. And you can get them all with just a monthly donation of $10, which we're calling our library card. We also have a class pass where you can get all the courses. Yeah, I named them without asking you. I
don't
hope that's
care.
okay.
You can do anything you want. But I do want to say and make this clear. I do not write to impress the audience. And that's something that I've been criticized for. I wrote a novel years ago, and someone read it and said, "You really don't care about your reader, do you?" And it's not that I don't, but I'm trying to convey messages, and I care more about the accuracy of what I'm trying to convey than to be flowery and really good.
Yeah, a lot of writers do that. Like, I don't understand those comments. I feel like none of those people have read philosophy.
Oh, okay.
Like, philosophy is like the hardest.
Yeah, because the guys,
Yeah,
the girls just,
Yeah, and like the way the like style it's written is like part of the learning.
Yeah.
And like I think your style like really is important to the lesson for some, even though
very
it's
important
hard.
to the lesson.
Yeah. So
All right, thank you. Just get to know that.
and then finally on that note, the goal here is, now that the website is almost there, we're going to start really putting some emphasis on YouTube not Shawn, but I will start making just kind of like topical videos on YouTube. So if you guys ever have ideas on what would help, be quick summary, like 5-minute videos, we're going to start making those. And then they will lead into new courses that we'll bring up each month at Colts. Both from Shawn on like radicalized topics, and then from me on like things that haven't been made entirely clear, like Trinity, or things that you've already explained but you don't need to do again, and I'll work on those.
Sounds good.
All right, let me read this from Kimberly about trauma drama. Last week you talked about the concept of trauma drama, and it really resonated. Going from one culture totally sold out to high demand religion, it's easy to slip into a subculture where everything is about how that original culture was wrong and having bitterness or feeling prideful. Your ministry has been a huge help in me starting to move beyond that, but I'm still not there. It seems a natural part of any faith journey to have a season of destruction / disentangling and a fine line to not let it slip into subculture of trauma drama. Do you or does anyone have advice for how to get through that bridge season? How long should the disentangling last? I continue to find it fascinating and wonder, will there ever be a time that I can just read the Bible and not have things about my old context or conditioning come up for me? I'm struggling to fully get beyond seeing through this lens, but maybe it will always be there to some extent. I still hear you and Danny comparative reference to LDS doctrine in your teachings, but assuming that it's different than trauma drama. Also, just wanted to plug another plug for your book, Mormonism to Biblical Christianity, for anyone else going through this. It's helped me so much to clarify things and is a great Bible study companion for anyone who has things come up continually and wants a thorough exegesis on topics that are hot button issues.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. And just a qualifier, my ideas on God, the Trinity, etc., in that book need to be revamped, but Delaney's going to do that someday post-mortem because I don't have the energy. But Kimberly, you know, that trauma drama
right.
is real. Yeah, the spirit of it's right.
Yeah.
The trauma drama is real, and I can say this from firsthand experience and from what I see lacking in most people who abide in trauma drama for the rest of their mortal existence, and that is what you actually do, Kimberly. You read the Bible. You don't even listen to me teaching it or anybody else. You read it. You study it yourself. And in time, as you ask questions and seek out answers, you're going to start to see the residue of Mormonism in its falsehoods fall away. But you'll also see Mormonism in the things that it does right in a good way too. So it will become a healing process. But the problem I have is when I have people who for 10, 15 years after leaving Mormonism, they come in and all they can do is talk about it. It's just they're still in the drama and in the trauma. So really, you're doing the right thing. Read the Bible. People say, what Bible? Anyone you'll read.
It seems like the more passes, the further away those things get.
Yeah.
And that does seem like the only thing, because you can stay in the trauma drama for as long as you're not trying to get out of it. And like, if you're trying to get out of it, it's possible. You're seeing Kimberly, like she's saying, you guys think about Mormonism at times because that's how you grew up, but like you're not stuck in resentment toward it, or in fact you can even see benefits to it now because you're so on the other side of, because of all the reading that you've done. So,
exactly right.
I have a feeling that Kimberly will get there.
Oh, I do too. And not to bag on those groups that focus on Mormonism, and I'll just say them: Utah Lighthouse Ministries, John Dehlin, RFM. You know, they serve a purpose, but for me, I don't know how those people continue to do what they do, because all it has become is just their own personal subgroup
Yeah.
to Mormonism.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're doing that with Catholicism or Jehovah's Witness, Scientology, I mean, it's really rude to say it this way, but I would just say you gotta grow up.
Yeah. And you get like I still see comments regularly about you where people are like, you helped me out of Mormonism. I wish you just stayed and kept doing that.
Yeah.
And all that is a reflection of where they're at.
Yeah.
Like, they have no idea how much better you are now than you ever have been in your content and your person. Like, it's wild that anyone would support
I know.
you going back to what you used to be. It's
But they constantly
ridiculous. But I've never thought of it like that. That's just a reflection of where they're at.
Yeah.
And Phoenix says they make a living from the Mormon content. People seem to love it.
Oh, they love it, man.
People really do love it.
You see a country farmer who out in Arkansas said, I just met some Mormon missionaries, and he makes a video and says, did you know the Mormons believe, and some title, and they'll get 20,000 views in a day. Yeah
100%. That's what there's a whole episode on just the way YouTube works with your content, but we don't need to do that today. Let's see. I wanted to say here on that, we're another plug for the Cult Proof Conference that's starting to starting to have a shape. Sarah, it seems that Sarah and I communicate via this show every week, but I'm telling Sarah now that I've heard from Matt Bywater, who reached out to me because he heard us talk about it last week, and he's very interested and is going to reach out to Chris Shelton, and Sarah and I are working on other people and the definition of cult proof, and we're also thinking about opening up a space for people not to give speeches that are presentations, but to more share their experiences, because that seems like a big part of this conference is people's experiences with cults. Or so
that's great.
There might be a section like that.
And I want to do a promo on Matt Bywater. Just look his name up. Matt, I think he just goes by Matt Bywater. Does he go by Matthew? He is a PhD candidate. And that is a researcher, and he's very interested in totalistic methodologies that are used upon people in religion or false religions. And he and I are working on some things together that are pretty in-depth, and I really respect him and his dedication to getting really to the roots of things. So I hope we can bring Matthew into you girls' cult. I hope he'll do it because he's cerebral. I know him personally. I've met him, and he is a kind man, and he's not a believer. And that's okay, because he evidences his love for humanity by his approach to humanity. And I believe that, this is my own personal religious views, but I think Matt will someday believe what we believe, but that's my religion. And so anyway, that's Matt Bywater. Look him up. He has a lot of videos out there right now. He's added a lot, so really appreciate him.
Yeah, he is, because there's a Matt Bywater that's we're getting a call. A Matt Bywater that's a baseball player. Look up Matt BMSC on YouTube, or type in Matt Bywater PhD, and that will bring his stuff up. All right, let's take this call. I believe it's our friend Grady. Whoops. You there, Grady?
Hey, how's it going, sis?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, not bad, not bad. Are we on?
You're on.
We're on, Grady, brother.
Oh. What's up, brother? How's it going?
Going good, man. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. I'm trying to figure out my volume here. It's not coming through my earphones, so I'm going to have to take them off. Hope you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you really well.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I saw something that I just thought was super cool, and since we've got the upcoming eschatology conference, I just thought I'd share it because it's something that I'd never seen before or thought about. But it might get a little bit complicated, but I think I can break it down simple enough. Are you interested in hearing it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, in 66 AD, there was a guy named Eliezer ben Ananias.
What a name!
Something like that. I might mess up some of these names. Ananias. Eliezer ben Ananias. He was the governor of the temple. And he stood up in the temple and he said, guess what? None of the priests were no longer going to accept any sacrifices on behalf of any Gentiles, right?
Okay.
Which was completely against all the tradition, against the law, against everything written in the Torah.
Okay.
Anyways, there was kind of an uprising and people, it ended up leading to like a 7-day war. But we go, move on from there. At the same time that this is going on, the zealots, who were these radical Jews, they were really hypocritical because they wanted everybody, to obey the law, and they wanted nobody over them other than God and the system, but they didn't pay any attention to the law or what it said or how to do it or anything else. They were really hypocritical. Anyways, and they were violent. Anyhow, they attack and take the Jewish the fortress of Masada, and they steal all of Rome's weapons and shields and everything that are there. Just a little while after this, though, okay, so those two things go on at the same time. But then there's this word gets around, and so there's an attack, and it wasn't directly related, but basically the Romans and Greeks in Caesarea they killed 20,000 Jews in one day. And so this pissed off the zealots, and so they start going throughout the countrysides, ransacking villages and burning them and whatnot. Well, one of those villages, and this is they did this say roughly September, late summer, early fall, in September of 66 AD. Okay, so we track it so far. Have I completely lost everything?
I'm with you.
Okay. All right. So what happens then is one of the villages that one of the cities they went and attacked was Pella. Okay, and if you remember Pella's where Christians fled to, right?
Right.
But here's the interesting thing. They go and attack Pella, which is in the Decapolis, and it's on the east side of the Jordan. It's Roman-controlled, Roman-ruled, and mostly Greek. And they attacked this city in retribution for, the attacks on Jews going out throughout, Caesarea and then other cities. Well, what's interesting about that is that when a Roman province would be attacked or something like that, Rome would always offer assistance. They were allies. That was part of the standing system. So Rome would have almost immediately gone in, resupplied Pella, reinforced its defenses, and reinforced its garrison so that it would, be protected from a future attack.
Okay.
So they would have done that very, very quickly. So move ahead to say November. It's some probably time early to mid-November. The governor of Syria named, what was his name? Oh, I always forget these names, man. I'm telling you.
We'll just call him the governor of Syria.
Gaius, right? Cestius Gaius goes and he attacks Jerusalem on behalf of Rome. He takes the 12th Legion, and they go and they attack Jerusalem. And they had it. They had it defeated. And for some reason, they just turned around and left. And, of course, the zealots, they pursue them, and they end up killing over 6,000 of his soldiers. They steal all kinds of siege equipment, everything else. But during this time, if we think about what Yeshua said, he said, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, leave. Well, that really doesn't make sense unless the army leaves. And so the army did leave. And so the Christians if they were, and this is also attested to by various Christian historians, Eusebius being one, that the Christians fled Jerusalem because they had had visions and they remembered what Yeshua had said, and they fled and they went to Pella.
Huh.
Now, where this gets really interesting is this: they go to Pella, and Pella is away from the face of the beast, right? It's away from the face of that dragon.
Okay.
It's protected there. It's where the woman was going and being provided for by God. Okay, it had been set up. If you read Romans 12, it was a place prepared by God for them, it says, to nourish her and take care of her.
Okay.
Now, it also says that she fled on the wings of an eagle.
Huh.
And so who had just resupplied? And is some of this speculative? Maybe, but it's not really speculative when you consider the history and what Rome did. So she flies on the wings of an eagle. How? Because it was by Rome's help that she was able to get there. And an eagle was was the animal that represented Rome. And it just, when you see it, maybe I went too fast on this. It just really, it all fits in and makes so much sense. And the Christians were there till the end of that siege.
And in your estimation, while they were there at Pella, that is the place where, if they were of the bride, they would have been taken from there?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so.
Okay.
But, and that's another thing that's interesting, and I've actually been doing quite a bit of different research on that, is, if you really think about that time and what was going on, the whole world situation at that time, it was in such upheaval. Who's going to notice Christians being missing? I mean, really, you've got families that are fleeing in the night with their you have men who are fleeing at night with their families, getting them away from the persecution being brought on by the Jews and Rome. Rome just sat by. They didn't care anymore. Heck, their own emperor was burning them alive at the stake. And so the Jews really had an opportunity and a time to really persecute the Christians in that time without any repercussions. Because what Roman garrison or soldier or that is going to stop a Jew from persecuting, beating up, or torturing a Christian when their own emperor is burning them alive for ripped in tar for his parties? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you look and you say, well, if that time hadn't been cut short, and this was something that was interesting too, is that time hadn't been cut short, there might not be any left. Well, that time was cut short, and I believe it was cut short with the Jewish revolt. Because when they rose up, everybody's attention went off of Christians. The Jews stopped focusing on Christians for the most part because they were worried about Rome, and Rome stopped focusing on Christians because they were going after Israel, the Jews in Jerusalem.
Was that the Jewish revolt that occurred in 66 AD at the hands of the Zealots?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what happened, and it was. There's a whole lot of stuff that leads up to that, but the truth at the end of the day, what really is made clear is it's all there. If you study the history, can you find out every single detail about every single thing? Absolutely not. You aren't. The history just isn't there.
Yeah.
But you can find out so many things that are so undeniably, this has to have been that.
Yeah.
That you can piece it together. It's just amazing.
So, Grady, in your estimation, you believe that the bride that was taken was insignificant, so insignificant that very few people of the Roman community or even the Jewish community would notice them going because they were all warring with each other.
Yes, absolutely. I truly do believe that, and we can even see by the 7 churches that being addressed. I mean, these are the 7 churches. These are the principles, right? This is where the 7 spirits are, and you see how they're all being given warnings. Look, you're going to be part of this bride. You better, here's what you have to start doing, what you have to keep doing, what you need to change, you need to hold fast just a little while. And that's one of the other aspects. And I hope I'm not going off on another subject here. Yes, I think there were very few taken. But on the other aspect of that, when we think about why were these 7 churches that really weren't going to be affected by the Jewish-Roman war, why are they being told all these things that are written in Revelation?
Great
That's
question.
one of the common questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, part of it was you have to look at the time this was being written. Revelation was being written sometime between 62 and probably between 62 and 65 A.D.
Okay.
But here's the thing about it. The persecution that the churches were undergoing was predominantly from Jews. They were the ones trying to pervert them, bring them back into Judaism. They were causing the trouble. You can even directly relate this Nicolaitan idea to the Jews and their synagogue of Satan, right? They keep talking about that. It was the Jews that were causing that persecution in that time for those churches. And one of the pressures that they were receiving was, look, you want to be good in society, you want to be able to come back to the synagogue, you want to be accepted by the Jewish community, which most of them were Jews. There were Gentiles, but most of them were Jews. They wanted to be accepted by their community. They wanted to be accepted, and they're being pressured to go out, to not be faithful to Yeshua. They're being pressured to return. And I think part of the revelation is, look, stay faithful, stay true, because those people who are pressuring you, I'm destroying their whole system that they're trying to get you into. And I think it was an encouragement to them, and it was a warning. Look, don't go back to Judaism, because guess what? In 4 or 5 years, it isn't even going to exist, because here's what I'm going to do to it.
It's radical stuff, man. It's a great primer for the upcoming eschatology conference. Grady will be our keynote speaker on Friday, May 2nd, and then we will continue that on Saturday, May 3rd. Grady, love you. We got a lot of comments coming in, and let's keep going, brother.
All right, brother. Hey, I love you. I'm sorry I just ran off at the mouth there. It's just like when you're studying this, it's just one thing leads to another, and it's just so amazing. I mean, it's just wonderful. So, hey, brother, love talking to you. I hope somebody got something out of that. Really looking forward to the conference.
Us too, brother. Love you too. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, no problem. Love you, everybody.
Love you too.
Sis. Bye-bye.
Love ya.
All right. Whoa. Sorry, people. Did you point it?
Yeah, I just saw things. Do we have anything from that? They're asking questions.
Oh, well, they're asking about book club.
Oh, tell them.
There is a book club going on with our community. So if anybody's interested, I believe they're reading The Unseen Realm by Michael Heiser and discussing it. I thought it was once a month for some reason, so I'm curious I can help facilitate that Zoom meeting if you guys need. I'm going to read a couple comments that we have. And you have some too, don't you?
Yeah.
You had a bunch listed. Okay. Jerome Ullman on one of our I Don't Get the Bible said, "You've studied the Bible a lot. Have you read the 7 Catholic books of the Bible too?"
I have not, and it's hard enough for me to take the Protestant collections. Just really frankly, I really believe that the Bible was the Old Testament. And I believe that the added apostolic letters were for the fortification of the faith for those who were living at that time, and then those of us who want to read it now to understand what occurred. But the real New Testament is not a material thing. It's when God writes his laws on our hearts and minds. So in the study of the Old Testament, even in that, I'm still progressing. I'm really a New Testament person who understands that better. To add the Catholic Bibles, what I do is I look at what has been the result of any information that any particular group has possession of. And so instead of going and reading the Catholic extra Bible books of the Bible, I look at Catholicism historically. And if I look at Catholicism historically in terms of its practices and don't find it really convincing to pursue, I don't read their stuff.
Okay.
Not to offend them. Some of the most beautiful believers are Catholics, but the institution I'm not that fond of. Except for their outreach to the poor is phenomenal.
Okay, I'm pulling up other. We get a lot of comment. I mean, we have like in the last few weeks, we have like 10 different comments on old preterist discussion between Preston and Jason Wallace.
Oh gosh.
I actually don't even know what happened at that. Would you care to summarize it?
First of all, I can barely follow Preston. Don Preston. He speaks in a language that's so deep in scholarship or his studies. I can't follow him. And Jason Wallace was really just trying to bring me down to the point where Don Preston said to him, you know, Jason, I can't talk about Shawn. Let's talk about eschatology. So that's what happened in a literal sense. I just want people to know that Don Preston, and I've learned this from Grady, actually, who listens to him because he can understand him better than I can. But Don Preston believes that the Church of Christ now is on the earth. That when Jesus returned, he put his church on the earth.
Yeah.
And Don wears a suit and tie and is playing church.
Yeah.
And so he and I and he and Grady will never agree.
Well, it's funny. I saw in my feed a video from Don Preston that said something like that. The name was like adjusting how we do ministry in fulfilled eschatology. Also, when did he ever start calling it fulfilled eschatology? I thought that was your term.
Well, it's our term, but I don't know. I could have borrowed it from him.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought he called it preterism explicitly.
I thought so too.
Interesting.
Maybe he's evolving.
Yeah, I'm curious to watch the video because it seems like he is definitely thinking about there being a type of practice still going on, which is like really does not make sense.
Baptism, all kinds of church stuff.
Yeah.
And neither Grady nor I can understand it.
Yeah.
He's just got blinders on, and there's certain things he can't even answer.
Yeah.
So
it would be really curious to have a discussion with him. Did you reach out to him?
I did. I reached out to him and my old friend Glenn, and neither of them responded.
I'm curious if that was intentional.
Because bottom line, what we are teaching is so radical that they don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, they really they don't like it. Okay, so someone on our I Don't Get the Bible said Satan worshipers, only Satan worshipers sell the gospel and they know it.
Sell the gospel.
Wait, I just exited out of it. Only Satan worshipers sell the gospel and they know it.
Wow. Well, I don't know that we're selling the gospel, so I guess I'm not a Satan worshiper.
And then on that note, Phoenix says, I loved the insight from Philippians in the latest I Don't Get the Bible. Is that the 144 were not literal versions, but they had not been adulterous with other gods. That one was new to me.
Yeah, it was new to me too, and that also goes back to my conversations with Grady. That's why we want to put him up, not above us, but equal to us, but put him in the position to answer and address these things because his insights are profound on eschatology. And if we don't have eschatology, the Great News Network is a joke.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's really realizing, but we're starting to get to the point that was I'm sitting in a leather chair.
I don't know if
in
you
a
folks
leather
heard
jacket.
that, but a rat in the back of the building just stood on its hind legs and ran out.
I'm so sorry. I'm literally in a giant leather coat sitting on a leather chair that makes noises.
She's on a steel chair in shorts and a summer outfit.
This is our experience in middle school with this guy coming into the office and just completely embarrassing us. Oh, Lord. Anyway, sorry. Wow. Check my church. I appreciated that clarification too. What I was trying to say was that we're slowly getting to this point where this is, we're kind of needing to lean on more people to field the expertise questions in their area. Like,
Yes.
everyone around us is really stepping up as experts in these specific areas, and we hope that people start to use those resources more. Like Sarah, Check My Church, she has so much in-depth thought about religious abuse, and
She's a
cults
fantastic
and-
author. She writes, well, of course, she writes well, but she has a really sound grasp on ecclesiastical abuse.
Totally, really does. And like you said, Grady on the Bible,
Danny
Danny on
Larson.
Mormonism.
Yeah.
Those are our current people, but
We
like,
invite all of you. I'm sorry I'm stepping on you, but
everyone has, like, this has been a thing for years now, where we've tried to structure whatever we're doing in such a way that other people can contribute, and it's never really been the right thing, but it's starting to fall into place now where there's these degrees of participation. We have Yeshuans, which is like pretty distant but like supportive, and then there's this where people are like sharing, like Sarah's sharing resources all the time in the community, and they're freaking awesome. So
and I
of
see
course,
people
Grady.
like Claire and I hate to use names because you always miss somebody, Lindsay and other people that bring to the
people
Todd.
particularly
Yeah,
in
Todd,
in the leadership program right now. I think Jeff is one for United Front. I think there's like we have so many people around us bringing really, really diverse, interesting, like literal expertise on these different things. So.
It's great.
Okay. I mean, I could read these comments on Old Heart of the Matters, but it's more trauma drama. But appreciate everybody who's still watching that content. Someone said on the Wallace debate, did Jason think he was coming to debate against dispensationalism? Instead of tackling down a gangrenous heresy, he decided to rant about a theological system that isn't heretical, just goofy. How would you respond to that?
I think that comment was kind of on point.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I can really say.
Okay. Someone else said, I'm so free now after watching this preterism.
Good. That's what it does for you, and that's why we promote it and teach it, is we want people to be free in their walk with Christ, without the influence of men, and that's what God intended.
I hate reading stuff about Jason Wallace. I'm seeing that Jason is clueless concerning the understanding of Hebraic thought and writing style versus Greek thought and writing style. He's neck deep in orthodoxy.
Yeah.
I'm starting to put out some responses to decades old criticism that's out in the world on Shawn in light of the great news and where he's at right now. And it is interesting to go back and look at these criticisms from literally 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost comical to read. And it was a big deal in the moment because you're like, I don't know. Not for you, maybe,
Yeah.
but for me. So
No, it was. Hey, I got a question for our audience to
Yeah.
consider. Maybe you can bring it next week or think about it now. But I'm just dabbling with the concept. Because I mentioned that we're teaching about saints, the word saints in the Old Testament in Psalm 31. and how C.S. Lewis thinks it is really a stupid title to give to people who are on Earth. But I want to know your thoughts about, is there anybody you can think of in your life experience, your studies, your research, that has been an earthly saint? People who have lived kind, merciful, contributory lives to the world population. Heavenly sainthood is only going to be given by God, and we don't know that. So to call somebody in heaven a saint, I think, is really actually out of our bounds. And I don't believe in heavenly saints in the sense that we pray to them or appeal to them. But I am starting to believe in fulfillment, that we can start to recognize people who have lived lives as earthly saints. And meaning just in the terra firma, in the material world, they have presented a model and an example that's admirable. One of mine is Helen Keller. She is just such an inspiration to me in terms of what she entered life with, what she exited life with. Phenomenal. And I think that she is an earthly saint that we should discuss and consider. Not with God, that's not close to Jesus and all that. Is there anybody you guys can think of? Send it in. Let's talk about it maybe in the future, because we're almost out of time.
Sarah says her father was a saint.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Wow. What a thing to say about your dad.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah. Well, that's debatable, isn't it? Saints are debatable.
I do feel the same.
I wonder if Sarah's sisters think he was a saint.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have 6 minutes. If there are any questions, please send them in. There's not really any other substantive comments that are worth reading.
All right. I want to bring up a few insights just to talk about. And for those of you who have ever been LDS and have left or leaving and trying to, is it possible in your mind, and please write in and tell us, share, is it possible in your mind to extricate the lies and deception that came from the imagination of Joseph Smith relative to extra scripture, the temple ceremony, false priesthood, extra wives, and yet keep the ingenious system of volunteerism and the spirit of service and order, the way they have managed their money? Is it possible to separate those two out in your minds? Now, I know that the LDS think that their wealth, prosperity, and all that stuff is based off the fact that they have spiritual truths. But there's no way those were true. There's no, Joseph Smith let his imagination go and he went after glory, gold, and girls. But all part of his imagination. But man, if we could tease apart that phony, untrue side of Mormonism and replace it like with the great news, or replace it with what is true somewhere, do you think, if you're our listener, that that's possible? Just wondering. What do you think of that, Delaney?
I don't know.
It's a big question.
I think to some degree that the efficacy of the church and the things that they do exist because of the control that they have on people because of their tie to God,
Right.
So
that's an absolute.
Yeah. So, and I also just can't, I do think there can be a total change in the world that happens through the great news. But I think that truth in it, meaning taking the hard route, that is the truth of it, is never going to be
systematized
to the degree of the Mormon church,
it's pretty
which
big.
is like, Yeah, I don't, but that's being kind of cynical. I think
It's being realistic.
I mean, it's also crumbling in a way. Like, it's not going to go away, the Mormon church, but is your question like, can we infiltrate the Mormon church with the great news?
No, my question is it possible first to separate the lies from the goodness? And you just said probably not. And you're right, because they use methodologies that keep their people in bondage. But if there a group of LDS people coming up through the ranks now who are younger, and they're starting to say, we really don't think the gold plate story and all that really holds water. We just really want to love Jesus. The reason I say that is I have an ex-mission companion, and he sends me texts that tell me he's fully active about what they're doing, and he is a full-on Christian Mormon.
I think that's definitely happening.
Yeah, and he's saying, we're singing Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
So could there be a groundswell movement among them of the good Latter-day Saints who love Jesus to suddenly say, we want to distance ourselves from all this other stuff, but still keep the church healthy? That's my question.
Yeah. I
It's a
think
hope.
that's current. I think that's like very much currently happening, actually. I don't know. I'm curious how big of, like, if the church leaders were smart, they would go with that, like, because it's really reasonable. I don't know if they will, but
They're sitting on $100 billion.
yeah,
They don't need to have all the old school Joseph Smith worshipers contributing anymore. They can live off a transition,
totally.
which the Church of Christ, not the Church of Christ, whatever it was, went through when Tay-Koch took over. They lost. They were like the world's biggest broadcaster of religious content, and one of their leaders came in and said, we're going to do things the evangelical Protestant way, and they lost like 80% of their, and now they're just kind of limping along. But Mormonism is so powerful with their money, it might be possible to sustain such a shift.
And you think that would be like, it's losing things about their history that are just not factual, but keeping a relationship with Jesus?
Keeping the relationship with Jesus, the fulfilled relationship, because I don't see why just playing church would benefit. So let's get real. It's like if they could get their eschatology, because they're called Latter-day Saints, if they could realize that's right there false.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's based on eschatology.
And then ridding themselves of everything. That includes Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, Temple Ceremony, priesthood, polygamy, all of that stuff. But taking the genius of their founder who took Masonry, and he incorporated it into a way to do religion that is just really difficult to beat.
Well, why not say just be a Mason?
Masons don't have the money, and they don't have. Remember, Smith, he took Masonry and he refabricated it to be a workable system in the name of religion. And so Masonry isn't the same thing as Mormonism. Mormonism is Smith's own imagination. He was a genius, but he was also absolutely false.
Interesting.
Yeah. They've got the biggest cattle ranch in the world. They own more property. I mean, the only thing bigger than them is the Catholics, and that's just because they've been around so long. So I just wonder, because you and I know some people who are in that religion. They have a Christian heart. They're good people, and that ancillary Joseph Smith stuff doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, they could reform it from the inside out.
Yeah, that's my hope.
And it's so funny because speaking of responding to criticism, I just did that. I posted an article on the Great News Network responding to a criticism of Born Again Mormon.
Oh.
And in reading that criticism, I didn't realize that Born Again Mormon was arguing really what you wanted to do from the start was stay in the church.
Yeah.
You wanted to be a part of the church and be able to have a relationship with Christ on your own.
Bring in the born again experience and the whole thing.
Yeah. And they literally wouldn't let you.
Yeah.
And critics thought that was like even a heinous suggestion.
Yeah. And the Christians thought it was a heinous suggestion.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, why? But It really, I mean, I'm caught between two things because it's like, it's a great thing in some ways, but it also is so disgusting for those same reasons. Like,
It really is.
You know, you do business with these people. It gets really slimy at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting question, though.
It's a good conversation piece.
Yeah.
In terms of
totally.
slime, you know, I was thinking about the differences between the cultural approaches of all the different religious expressions. Catholics, if you get a really devout Catholic, they're usually kind of a certain way. Baptists, kind of a certain way. Calvinists, certainly a certain way. And I thought, what is the best way, living here in Utah, to describe Mormons who are true believers and they really want to share it? And I really think it comes from their prophet, founding prophet Joseph Smith. They are, after watching Heretic, charming. He was a charmer.
Wow.
Yeah, and they are charming
It's so
people.
true. They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the first thing they do is charm.
Charm.
Like,
Charm the hell out of you.
kind, and
Yeah.
even if it's not like actual, like, it's like at the most essential definition of charm.
Yeah.
Like they put on a thing to be likable to the world.
To the world.
Yeah.
I've been on so many flights sitting next to Mormons, and they've asked me what I do, and I've told them, and they, oh, that is so good. Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's charm.
Yeah. Phoenix says you should have a look at the new baptismal questions. They're quite different, more vague and basic.
They took the sleeves off the temple garments for women.
Yeah, that's wild. That's another thing. There are so many, just like Christianity, there's like hundreds of thousands of reactions to Mormonism. Girls, I have seen like big organizations of girls starting a thing that, themselves to have a sort of relief society together outside of the church.
Wow.
To have a community, but they don't believe in the church anymore. Like really, or like it's very weird.
Yeah.
Like everyone, there's a lot of people doing a lot of really wild things
It's an interesting
inside and
time.
outside.
Fascinating.
Grady, we're over time, so we should finish this. Grady says, yes, I'm a little behind. Not casting dispersions, just facts. Don Preston believes Yeshua's return wasn't to take his bride, but to come to her here on earth and fully establish the church. Is that based at all? Like, where does that come from?
It's like the middle ground between it's
sort of like what you say happens spiritually up in heaven. Like he takes those same verses and says it's material.
Yeah. So what I say to Preston is, what do you do with Jeremiah 31, where it's no man says know the Lord, no, it will be written on their heart and mind. What does he do when it says nothing that can be shaken will remain? What does he do? And Grady says he just ignores it.
I see.
Yeah.
He says the resurrection was the resurrection of believers to eternal spiritual life. Most Protestants I know believe the return of Yeshua was to establish a church on earth, not take the bride to rule and reign with him spiritually from or in the New Jerusalem.
My question is, what church then? That's always my question. Okay, if you did that, which church is it, Preston?
Yeah. The eschatology conference is really going to set an interesting tone, because I think most of the people speaking are not of that impression, right?
Right.
Or maybe fall somewhere in between it.
And by the way, something you don't know about that conference, but there's a man and his wife who were attending an evangelical church here in town, and they started coming here and they learned about eschatology. And it's been 10 years since that, and we're going to sit down and he and I are just going to talk about what that's meant to him in his life. And you're going to see a representation of a couple who love Yeshua, who have no connection to church.
Will she be on it too?
No.
We have fans and non-fans of Heretic in the chat.
Oh.
And
Hi.
all right, let's wrap it up. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thanks, you guys.
Look forward to more evolutions of this ministry as time goes on, always for the better in terms of
Hopefully.
the content we make.
Amen.
And
Weren't you going to make a promise or some kind of
I
commitment?
did
Why don't you reiterate that?
a course a month.
A course a month.
Maybe not this big expansive course, but a new course a month. Not courses where Shawn is just talking to the camera, but where maybe I narrate a presentation, reducing things you've talked about into really simple, easy to understand
I think it's awesome, babe.
resources. All right.
Thanks, you guys. We love you.
Thank you all. Love you all. Bye-bye.
To him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him, oh yes, to him it is sin. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him, oh yes, to him it is sin. To him, oh yes, to him it is sin.
One, two, three, four. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. But I say to you,
for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and